On November 29, 1970, a man and his two young daughters went hiking in a remote valley outside Bergen, Norway. What they found among the rocks would launch one of the most baffling unsolved cases in European history: a burned female body, surrounded by a dozen sleeping pills, 2 bottles of liquor, and the faint smell of gasoline. Every label on her clothing had been cut away. Every serial number on her belongings had been scratched off. She carried no identification. And to this day, more than 50 years later, no one knows her name. This is the mystery of the Isdal Woman. Isdalen. In English, it translates to Ice Valley. It's a desolate, rocky ravine tucked behind Mount Ulriken, the tallest of the 7 mountains that encircle the city of Bergen on Norway's western coast. For centuries, locals have avoided Isdalen. According to folklore, it was a place where accused witches were burned during the Middle Ages. The valley carries a reputation, a darkness that seems to cling to the stones themselves. In 1970, Norway was a quiet corner of Cold War Europe. NATO had established a significant military presence in the region. Bergen, with its strategic coastal position, was home to sensitive naval operations. Foreign intelligence operatives from both sides of the Iron Curtain moved through Scandinavian cities regularly, hiding in plain sight among tourists and businesspeople. This geopolitical backdrop is critical because the woman found in Ice Valley was no ordinary traveler. When Bergen police arrived at the scene that November afternoon, they immediately recognized this was unusual. The body was partially burned, positioned on its back with arms raised in what forensic experts call the pugilistic pose, a common result of exposure to intense heat. Nearby, they found an empty bottle of a liqueur not commonly sold in Norway, the remains of a lunch packed in a way inconsistent with Norwegian customs, a broken umbrella, and roughly 50 sleeping pills scattered around the scene. A faint petrol smell hung in the cold air. The autopsy revealed she had died from a combination of carbon monoxide poisoning from the fire and an overdose of over 60 phenomenal sleeping pills. She was between 25 and 40 years old, approximately 5'4", with brown eyes, and had undergone several dental procedures using techniques and materials unfamiliar to Scandinavian dentists. Her fingerprints were not on file anywhere in Norway. Investigators discovered that the woman had left 2 suitcases at the Bergen train station. Inside those suitcases, they found what can only be described as a spy's toolkit of deception. There were clothes from at least 5 different countries. Every single label, every brand tag, every care instruction, every manufacturer's mark had been meticulously removed. They found wigs. They found prescription glasses with non-corrective lenses. They found Norwegian currency, German currency, and various coins from across Europe. They found a notepad with coded entries, lines of letters, numbers, and symbols that appeared random at first glance. But here's where it gets strange. Police also found 8 different passports and identity documents. 8. Each with a different name. Each listing a different nationality: Belgian, French, Italian, Swiss, among others. Using these identities, investigators painstakingly reconstructed her movements over the preceding months. She had traveled through at least 5 European countries in 1970 alone, staying at expensive hotels, often checking in under one name and checking out under another. She never stayed anywhere longer than a few days. Hotel staff in Stavanger, Trondheim, and Bergen remembered her an attractive, well-dressed woman who spoke multiple languages but whose accent no one could quite place. Some said French. Others thought German. A few guessed something Eastern European. Police contacted Interpol. They circulated her description across Western Europe. Nothing. No match. No missing persons report. Nobody came forward to claim her. Now, what about those coded notes? Norwegian intelligence eventually cracked part of the code. The entries corresponded to her movements, dates, cities, hotel names. It was a travel log written in cipher. Think about that for a moment. What kind of person encodes their own travel itinerary? What kind of person removes every identifying mark from every piece of clothing they own? What kind of person carries 9 separate identities across international borders? Witnesses added more disturbing layers. A man at a Bergen hotel reported that the woman had knocked on his door one night in apparent distress, saying she was afraid that someone was going to kill her. A hotel receptionist recalled the woman requesting room changes multiple times, always asking for rooms with specific views of the entrance as if she needed to see who was coming. A shopkeeper near one of the hotels remembered a man with a foreign accent asking about the woman just days before her death. Bergen police initially classified her death as suicide. The sleeping pills, the fire, it seemed to fit. But significant doubts emerged almost immediately. The placement of the body was unusual. There was no soot in her lungs consistent with someone who had been conscious when the fire started, suggesting she may have been unconscious or already dead before the flames were lit. The sleeping pills were scattered around the body, not inside it in the quantities you'd expect from a deliberate overdose. The 60 pills found in her system was an estimate, and some investigators questioned whether they could have been administered by someone else. And perhaps most troubling, her front teeth had been removed, either shortly before or shortly after death. Removed teeth. Scratched off serial numbers. Cut away labels. Someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to make sure this woman could never be identified. So let me ask you, does that sound like suicide to you? Norwegian intelligence services, the Politiets Overvåkningstjeneste, quietly took an interest in the case. Documents later revealed that they monitored the investigation closely and may have even restricted certain lines of inquiry. Several key pieces of evidence, including some of the coded notes and travel documents, were classified. When journalists later attempted to access the full case file, they found portions missing or redacted. In 2016 and 2017, Norwegian broadcaster NRK and international partners launched a massive reinvestigation. They commissioned isotope analysis of the woman's teeth and bones. The results suggested she had grown up in an area near the Franco-German border, possibly in Nuremberg or another city in southern Germany, and had later moved to a coastal region, possibly France. DNA analysis indicated Central European ancestry. Facial reconstruction gave the public a clearer image of what she may have looked like. But even with 21st century forensic technology, her name remained just out of reach. In the decades since the Isdal woman's death, 2 key witnesses connected to the case died under circumstances that raised eyebrows. A man who had reportedly been seen with the woman in the days before her death was later found dead in what was ruled an accident. Details remain murky. The original lead investigator expressed frustration before his retirement that the case had been quietly buried, hinting that pressure came from above, from people who knew exactly who the woman was and wanted the investigation to stop. The prevailing theory among researchers is espionage. The Cold War context, the multiple identities, the coded notes, the intelligence service involvement, the systematic destruction of identifying markers, it all points toward a woman operating in the shadow world of international intelligence. Some believe she was an Eastern Bloc agent. Others think she may have been a double agent who was eliminated when her cover was blown. A smaller number of researchers have proposed she was involved in illegal arms or technology trade, Bergen's proximity to NATO naval operations making it a prime location for such activity. But here is what haunts me most about this case. Somewhere, someone knows who she was. Someone gave her those passports. Someone taught her those codes. Someone may have watched her walk into Ice Valley for the last time. And in over 50 years, that someone has never said a word. The Isdal woman was buried in a zinc coffin in Bergen's Molenpris cemetery on February 5, 1971. A Catholic priest performed the ceremony. The decision to use Catholic rites was based on items found in her belongings, another small clue that leads nowhere definitive. Her grave is maintained to this day. It bears no name. She lived in disguise. She died in fire. And she remains, after all this time, completely unknown. What do you think happened in Ice Valley that night? If this case kept you up at night the way it kept us up, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because the Obscura files are just getting started. We go deep into the cases the world left behind, the ones without clean answers and comfortable endings. Drop your theory in the comments: spy, victim, or something else entirely? And if you haven't already, check out our last video, because that story is just as dark, and just as unresolved. Until next time, stay curious. Stay suspicious. And remember, some valleys never give up their dead.